Keep going. Here goes nothing.
Barcelona, Our Lady of Silver.
I'll be keeping an eye on you. Understand?
If I choose to kill you, you will not even see it.
Press the wound. Not like that.
You're not versed in magic, are you? Oh, I do apologize. I meant to ask, are you studied in magic? Namely, are you a wizard? Which you are not. If you meet any elder wizards, let me know. There is a matter I'd like to seek advice on from a master.
You're all right.
So, Gith, aren't you worried your kind will punish you for consorting with us?
My name is Lazelk Choki, and my kin will understand my need for service.
These tracks.
They will help
Goblins?
you, but only if I ask.
Glowing eyes are rarely a good sign. Best be careful. Think you can take me on?
wake him up by chopping off a toe? That'd be funny. Did some bleeding arts show up to save the druid? I'll cut you to pieces. Kill 'em!
Let's end this. Make way!
Blood comes easy these days.
Let's finish this. Taste my fury.
I wonder if this is worth the cost.
Need to act fast. Victory awaits.
No choice but to keep going. What's in here? What's up for discussion?
His breaths are shallow, his wounds deep.
What's next?
Is that blood? No, never mind.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I thought I was gonna die down here. No, I'd still be outside gathering herbs if I didn't run into the goblins. I must tell the others what happened. I stepped careful. There are traps in these tunnels. And thank you again.
Let's see.
You're gonna be sorry! Every last one of you! Oh, you thieves are all boring! Even your cages are boring! You ain't gonna shoot me. Your hands are shaking.
Put it down. She can't fight back.
That's the point. Get out of the way!
She didn't kill your brother, Arca. You're better than this.
Your mind wanders. If the crossbow bolt shot through her mouth, would she taste the metal before she died?
Shoot before you lose your nerve, Tiefling. If you ever had it to begin with. Doesn't even matter if you kill me. I'm chosen by the absolute I am. I'm blessed. Here it comes, you little beast.
Goblins, druids, this grove is a death trap. Grab what you can and get out. That's my advice.
There.
Shoes.
Done.
Where are my boots?
We can at least make a run for it.
Hells! We can't just leave. They're kin.
I'll not gamble our lives, our futures, on people who are as good as dead. We must leave for Baldur's Gate at once.
Can we all just take a moment, please?
What's the point in blazing spells if we don't bloody use them? We should stay. These people aren't fighters. We can help.
Or yell louder. That's fine too.
This isn't El Terrell, and I'm not responsible for every damn tiefling in the world!
Just be responsible for yourself then. We have to stay. It's the right thing to do.
Thug. Fine. We'll stay. If we survive, it'll make for a good story, I suppose.
Thank you, Roland.
How long until Roland shows off his thunder wave?
Be gone. I am hungry.
I should speak up.
Another one. What are you under there then? Ant? Or rocks? You have the smell, but I do not think so. You are not like the keepers here. They become birds to hunt on the wing, bears to tear flesh with teeth. But for me, only oxen, only same old hay. And I cannot even eat it, because the horned ones hide their shiny bits inside. Hiding things, thinking they're clever, not clever. Sometimes I eat the shiny bits, and they have to go looking for them on the other end. I have no more to say. Even old hay tastes better than your idle chatter.
You are unable to speak.
You're addressing me, a humble ox. How quaint.
Something's off. This creature isn't what it appears to be.
No, you are incapable. I'll tell you this much. I'm going to Baldur's Gate, with or without the rest of these poor sods. Now, that's all I have to say besides, and I really mean this, moo. Nothing here for you.
Action, not reaction.
This place is a bloody death trap, not a sanctuary. You should clear off while you can.
Can't give up
getting
now.
to me. If we left, we could at least make a run for it.
Depends. How many people are dumb enough to ask?
We're exposed now.
You are unable to speak.
Blackets will be done.
Refugees, adventurers, no one in years. Well met. Is there anything you need? Act fast if you do. The ritual will be complete before too long. Just some bits and bobs I no longer need. Sylvanus, guide your path.
Where am I? What's going on?
These tieflings prove fragile. I've a mind to end their misery myself.
Calm yourself. They're survivors, not soldiers.
I fail to see the distinction.
I want to have a word.
You are unable to speak.
Eager for battle, without delay.
Aradin's back with his tail between his legs. I'm glad for your help, but I'd hoped you were Halsin. Yeah, when he ran off with the druid that saved our hides the first time. Without Halsin, this grove's not so friendly, I'll tell you that.
What to do?
Feel like we're being watched. On my way.
Victory awaits.
What fools these mortals be.
Take this!
Welcome, rest.
You have good timing. Never been much of a fighter, so wrestling a bugbear would have gone poorly. But you're not here for heroics, are you? Avernus's stench is all over your skin. Let me guess. Your devil mistress sent you to get her soul coin back. Too bad. I earned it, fair and square. You almost seem honest. Care to explain why you reek of the hells?
Well, that's quite the story. And I thought I was doomed. Now I feel sorry for you. Here. Take this. It's worth a fortune. But a fortune's not worth much if you're dead.
A soul coin, true to its name, holds a mortal soul inside. It serves in the Nine Hells as very valuable currency.
For child.
That'll be $37.95.
Do you have change for 50?
No. Just keep the change.
Azula goes to sleep and wakes up on a beach with her entire family, but the dream keeps luring her in by telling her everything that she wants to hear. Like when Azula's mom says she's proud of Azula for becoming the new Fire Lord, off on the side we see Maya and Ty Lee sitting on the beach together as they tell Azula none of this is real, because her mom would
world is kinda gone. And by extension, that also means there is no centralized authority, and the ban on bloodbending obviously wouldn't be enforced or even policed. And considering the concept and knowledge of bloodbending was very much popularized with the Tarlock incidents, it's not very secret either. So I think it's almost a given that there will be gangs, or even entire populations, who have learned bloodbending with no reservations or a sense of it being somehow taboo. In a pseudo-post-apocalyptic world where survival is paramount, it only makes sense that it becomes just another tool for, well, nothing more than survival. Just like way back in the early days, when bending was a means of protecting themselves against spirits, now that society has largely crumbled away, bending once again becomes just a means of survival against their fellow man. But that's just human versus human bending stuff. What's much more interesting to me is the spirit stuff. I'm obviously reading tea leaves a little here, but these aren't totally blind guesses either. We know that both the human world and the spirit world have been torn apart, and that most of the world is dominated by the spirit wilds, just like during Juan's era. Presumably, that means there won't be places of high spiritual activity because most of the world is just spirits. But unlike Juan's era, this is nothing new. We already know that waterbending, for example, can pacify spirits. And we know that the Avatar can quite literally merge with other spirits. And we know that certain spirits had beef with the Avatar in particular, and so on. And most likely, most technology will also be wrecked, so we won't have weird mechs running around shooting weird spirit laser beams. In that kind of world, bending itself might actually regress or evolve, depending on how you look at it. It wouldn't be about further optimizations of combat techniques, but about restoring balance between the spirits and humanity. I think it would be really interesting if we saw that pendulum swing back to not just the earliest forms of bending, but also why bending existed in the first place. It was a tool given by ancient beings as a means of protection, a tool to maintain harmony between the spirits and humans. We already have people like Iroh who could peer into the spirit world. We have the swamp, which could effectively show visions of the future. And we have moments like Zhongzhong's interaction with Roku, where the bridge between the worlds was very, very blurry. So, could we see every element become way more spiritually attuned and gain techniques to directly interact with the spirit world in some capacity? The Avatar was once a bridge between these two worlds, but what if everyone now needs a bridge? Earthbenders can become listeners to the earth itself, communing with ancient spirits who have remained dormant for millennia. Firebenders can return to the original benders and bend not just fire, but life and spirit itself. Waterbenders can soothe and smooth out the rigid boundaries between humans and spirits. Airbenders can be emissaries, projecting themselves into the spirit world to maintain that fragile connection for future avatars. And there's also the Seven Havens, Seven Chakras potential connection, since, the common theme there is spirituality. Considering how important of a role they played in Aang's journey and understanding and, more importantly, mastering the Avatar state, I have a very hard time believing that they're not coming back in this series as well. So, could each Haven represent not a bending form in the traditional sense, but rather an ideology or spiritual attunement? There are 4 elemental chakras, but what if you're a firebender who pursues the beliefs of air nomads? I talked a bit more about this in my first video on the new series, but I absolutely expect the chakras and spiritual mastery to play a major role in Pavi's story. Visiting them one by one does seem a little bit cliche, but I mean hey, if this series is all about learning of why the world turned on the Avatar, then finding this internal truth also does make a lot of sense. As for how our twin figures into all of this, who knows? I am still holding out the hope that one of them has the 4 elements, while the other can only interact with spirits, as I think that would really emphasize the question of what makes an avatar, and whether being just a powerful bender is enough. If you have someone who can't bend at all but can become a literal primordial being, that to me seems more like an avatar than someone who can just bend 4 elements, but is that really the case? It's an interesting question to ask. But to sum it all up, I think Pavi's era won't be defined by specialized benders or major wars. Rather, I think it's going to be all about the spiritual side of what it all meant in the first place. I think Pavi isn't going to be a warrior or a peacekeeper. She will be a guide, trying to find that now very, very blurry line between matter and spirits. And that's the video. This is one I've been meaning to make for a while, even before the Pavi series was announced, so I guess there it is in prep.
Imagine standing in a dim
off that is exemplified through her using her element to see the world and achieve independence through that. She may have been born blind, but in her own way, she sees infinitely more than her parents who only see her weaknesses. Toph might come off as overly blunt and self-serving, but that's just an outcome of her not letting others affect her emotions. The tales of Ba Sing Se and the Runaway are both very good examples. In both episodes, there is some sort of conflict and Toph is confronted about something. She immediately claps back, she is blunt and she doesn't apologize for anything. But only when she gets some alone time does she actually work through those underlying feelings in hopes of gaining better control over them. All of this is to say that, much like the rigid nature of earthbending, its philosophies are also purposefully dull. That is the complete inverse of Aang. It's simply not in his nature, yet, to confront these things truly head-on. When he found out he was the Avatar, he ran away and started the story as we know it. When he returned, he still avoided telling the truth that he is indeed the Avatar. When he was called out for disappearing, he again ran away and we saw him unpack those feelings in the storm. I think a concise little example is the supercut of the Blue Spirits.
Untie me and I'll fight you right now! If we knew each other back then, do you think we could have been friends too?
Make any new friends?
No, I don't think I did.
It's not that Aang can't
think we could have been friends too?
Make any new friends?
No, I don't think I did.
It's not that Aang can't be quite forward and step up to a fight, it's rather a question of how he goes about these things. When it comes to the Blue Spirits, he never mentions it again because it is an outcome of his failure as the Avatar. Not even on a world scale, but strictly personal with Zuko. He wasn't around to maintain balance before this war started, but even when he returns, he can't even restore balance in this single relationship. Confronting that is just really hard because he's supposed to restore balance to the entire world. So jumping back to Bitter Work, we see that angle of Aang wanting to jump straight into earthbending just like he did with all the previous elements. But regardless of how much he practices or how many training montages he gets, it just doesn't work for the simple reason of him thinking that it won't work. He has no problem fighting or pushing against something so long as that is on his terms, but when it comes to facing something face to face, he fails.
When it came right down to it, you didn't have the guts.
Even the way Aang apologizes, he shows humility, just apologizing and saying that he panicked. Something that, of course, goes against that stoic way of thinking. Instead of trying to control the energy within himself, he tries to control the surroundings and the earth he's about to face, and so he simply dodges out of the way. That is that airbending philosophy. He doesn't face it head on, he finds his own path. Again, just like the mattress, from a purely realistic sense, obviously, dodging out of the way of a massive boulder is just a smart thing to do if you are not like 100% certain. So yeah, it's like really hard to fall tank for that. But at the same time, in-universe, that is a fundamental failure of earthbending. Not even technique, but fundamental understanding of how it even works. After all their practice, Toph was confident in Aang's skills, and by every measure, had he stood his ground, he would have broken apart the boulder. But again, this is earthbending. There really is no trying here. If he didn't stand his ground, he has failed fundamentally. Because of the episode format, Aang does of course overcome that initial barrier relatively quickly, with him then finding Sokka and confiding in him about the pressure he feels. He even explicitly vocalizes this.
If I try, I fail. But if I don't try, I'm never gonna get it.
But importantly, even with Sokka, he doesn't want to go get Toph because that would again be confronting that failure head-on, something that he doesn't want to do just yet. But as the saber-toothed moose lion appears, we see that slow shift in his perspective. He first does his usual thing of simply deflecting the attack. He then tries to trick it into following him. But when it does not react, he is finally forced to jump in again and face it head-on. This entire sequence begins with purely airbending philosophy of not striking his opponents. Each and every move Aang pulls here is merely misdirecting its attack. But finally realizing that there is no other way, Aang stands his ground and, while he might use airbending, strikes back in what is pretty clearly earthbending fashion. There's a whole different debate to be had here about how airbending, with the other bending techniques, is easily the most OP element and it's not even close. But point is, much like the very smug Toph would say, this marks the first major step toward Aang truly understanding and accepting the stoic philosophy that is Earth. He does not try to reshape his surroundings by deflecting the blow to somewhere else. He faces it head on and pushes back from his own position. That is the one and only thing he needs to control, his own position. He asks Toph why she didn't intervene, but instead of actively blaming her, he instead demands his staff back. Again, not trying to reshape his environment by having Toph apologize for something that has already happened in the past, but rather focusing on the current and personal issue of the staff. In a perfect world, we'd see that progression of Aang actually trying to break through this barrier that is earthbending happen throughout the entire season. But again, because of the limitations of the 20-minute episode format, he does kinda sorta go from oh my god this is impossible to actually earthbending within a single afternoon. A whole lot happens in that single afternoon, and it definitely feels like much longer than a single afternoon, but it is a single afternoon. And keep the staff in mind, by the way. But yes, as much as this does seem a little wacky goofy that, it is just a single afternoon, the themes of him struggling with the elements continue for a long time. And I think they are best showcased when he loses Appa. For the first ever time in the series, he is quite literally grounded. Just like with Gyatso in the storm, his emotions do boil over and he tries running away from it all. But when he comes back, he is far more cold and almost distant. In the Serpent's Pass, Katara tells him that it's okay to miss Appa and to show emotion. But Aang just says that he didn't like the anger he felt in the desert. And while he doesn't explicitly mention it, I think this also goes for the many times he went into a super volatile avatar state. But he then simply bows and thanks for her concern. Clearly, this is a very, very different Aang. Obviously, a majority of this is just because of Appa, but I think there is already that angle of this being that newfound Earth Kingdom type of thinking. Appa has been kidnapped, there's no point in being sad about that. The only thing he can focus on now is keeping a clear head and doing everything he can to do to find him. I think the birth of hope there is another thing to signal that. Aang is not sad or angry or anything because there is hope, and the only thing he can do is pursue Appa. The only thing he can trust is his 2 feet and the ground beneath him. We see something similar with Tales of Ba Sing Se as well. His tale begins with the somewhat somber search for Appa, but upon seeing the state of the zoo, instead of focusing on that loss, Aang again pivots to the thing he can control and improve, the zoo. He might not have been able to help Appa in the deserts, but he can help the animals here. And so this too becomes a moment of introspection as he, very fittingly, uses his newly acquired earthbending skills to help the situation. And if we jump back in time just a teeny bit to the drill, I think Aang's fight with Azula is another good showcase of how his fighting style has already developed. First of all, purely narratively, he is now defending something instead of just fighting her. So by default, he sort of needs to stand his ground, there is nowhere he can run to. But on a strictly personal level, it is no longer evasion-based. Most of his moves now incorporate some sort of immediate retaliation. I think this is best showcased by when he's pushed up against the wall. He blocks the strike face to face and immediately goes to push her back with that same technique. Remember, this is an airbender whose go-to is airbending, and we'd see exactly this with Ozai. He uses airbending, but in this situation, he doesn't. Ditto for the entire mission of actually destroying the drill. The entire method of taking it down is these coordinated, precise attacks, just like the slow and methodical approach of earthbending. But the most interesting aspects of this, I think, manifest in the latter half of Book 2 and early Book 3. After finding Appa and escaping like Lao Guy, Aang is absolutely locked in. In the Book 2 narrative, this is the peak of his calm, collected, and laser-focused pursuit of a single goal. In this case, meaning the Earth King to inform him of the eclipse. His fighting style has entirely shifted from a mostly solo-focused mixture of evasion and offense to perfectly synchronized movements with Toph that are all about creating this impregnable defense. This is that fundamental shift from reactionary thinking to slow and deliberate. An even better example of this, I think, is their surprise fight against Sparky Boom Man. The fight opens with just pure evasion. They were clearly caught off guard, so System 1 thinking takes over as Aang just essentially kites him around while everyone else can flee. But as soon as he has read his opponent, Aang slows way down. He chooses to effectively tank one of the hits and employ the purest form of neutral Jing as he hides in one of the pillars and simply listens. Just like Toph in her introduction, he is waiting for that one small opening. And when he sees it, he uses that opportunity to again tank one of the explosions and uses that to get away. He doesn't fight him, nor does he try to just run away. Instead, he faces his attacks just head on and uses those blasts to get away. That's just how OP Earth plus Air is. Even in small-scale examples like their training during the runaway. Aang is interweaving the flowing moves of waterbending with the more rooted stances of earthbending, placing one precise strike right after redirecting Katara's. Oh yeah, and of course... My point being that, as soon as Aang grasps the basics of earthbending, his overall thought process, not just in regards to combat but problems in general, shift on a fundamental level. I'd argue more so than with any other element, and frankly it's not even close. Minus air itself, of course, because, that was his first element. That said though, Avatar is a 3-act story, so before we get to the triumphant victory, we of course still have the Book 2 finale and the obligatory defeat at the hands of Azula. And here, like we should do with a good old Act 2 finale, we see both sides of Aang. One is the